Welcome to the third lecture of the Blockchain Business Management and Planning module. The topic of this lecture is Fundamentals of Business Management 2. To understand the content of this lecture, we recommend that you have previously watched the lectures of Module 1, Introduction to Blockchain Methodology, and Module 3, Fundamentals of Blockchain and Distributed Ledger Technology, as well as the lecture 4.2. The learning material is designed to provide you with important future skills, ELAS 2020, to gain the ability to effectively manage or develop blockchain services and processes. This lecture follows on from lecture 4.2. We start with an overview of the learning objectives. Then there is an introduction to product and value proposition design. Afterwards, the business model canvas and business model environment will be introduced. Following this, the insights will be transferred to the blockchain business model. Finally, the lecture is summarized in the conclusion. This slide shows an overview of the knowledge, skills, responsibilities, and autonomies you will acquire in this lecture. The learning objectives of this lecture are similar to those of lecture 4.2. After this lecture, you should have an awareness of the criteria of blockchain technology to be applicable in the business use cases. You should be able to examine when blockchain technology becomes a viable option for a business use case, and have the capability to generate innovative blockchain application ideas that add value. To brainstorm ideas for possible technical applications, a morphological box and a method of value proposition design, which is linked to the method of value stream mapping from the previous lecture 4.2, are also helpful. The morphological box is a creative technique to get structured ideas for questions. We will also encounter the morphological box again in lecture 4.4 on technology assessment. In this lecture, however, it is more about the application of the method for product development, improvements, or product updates. The morphological box is structured like a matrix and can help to show the totality of all conceivable solutions for a problem. For this purpose, the problem is divided into so-called design parameters, or features, which are listed in the outer left column of the matrix. Here, the user is made to think through the different levels of a solution. Furthermore, different characteristics of these design parameters are defined. This is done in the corresponding lines. In the example shown, the question about the storage and certification of university certificates is processed with the help of a morphological box. You first collect possible design parameters and then define various possible characteristics. It is not important which of these is the first, second, or third characteristic. By combining the individual characteristics, the how, with the features, the what, you obtain new solutions. You make this combination clear by connecting them with lines and thus making them visible. It is also helpful if you define the parameters logically independent of each other. This allows you a great number of combinations. When defining the parameters, make sure that they don't describe any subordinate details, and that the parameters can apply to all conceivable solutions. Discuss your results together in the team. A proposition is a description of your offering to a specific group of target customers, a market segment, who have a particular market problem. It should focus on the customer benefits and answer the question, why should I buy from you? Ideally, propositions should highlight attributes that are relevant to and valued by our target customers, have unique attributes that we can maintain over time against the competition, and include some quantification of the value customers will get. In the early stages, the value proposition forces you to clarify why you are developing a product and why customers will buy it. If you define it correctly, it will paint a vision that goes beyond standard requirement documents. In the later product cycle, it can provide high-quality content for marketing to develop marketing strategies and advertisement material. It also helps to develop messaging for each type of buyer and user profile. First, edit the customer page. Enter the tasks that your customer wants to complete. Then add the gains and losses for the customer when they try to complete the tasks. Then work out your value proposition. First, list all the products and services in your existing service offering. Second, outline how your products and services currently help customers alleviate pain by removing undesirable outcomes, barriers, or risks. Use one sticky note per pain relief. Next, explain how your products and services are currently creating the expected or desired outcomes and benefits for customers. Rank products and services, pain relievers, and profit generators according to how important they are to customers. Adjust your value proposition based on what you have learned from customer insights and achieve a product market fit. Then answer the following questions to evaluate your value proposition. First, is it embedded in an excellent business model? Second, does it focus on the most important tasks, the most extreme pains, and the most essential benefits? Third, does it focus on unmet tasks, unresolved pains, and unrealized gains? Fourth, does it focus on a few pain relievers and gainers, but ones that are working extremely well? Fifth, does it treat functional, emotional, and social tasks together? Sixth, Does it align with the way customers measure success? 7th, does it focus on tasks, pains, or benefits that a large number of customers have, or for which a small number are willing to pay a lot of money? 8th, is it differentiated from the competition in a meaningful way? 9th, does it significantly outperform the competition at least one dimension? 10th, is it difficult to copy? After we have designed the product idea, the question is, what does a business idea need to be successful? The idea should meet the customer's desire, which we have already tried to cover with the value proposition. The product or service should be scalable and financially viable. It needs reliable channels to reach the customers and a stable infrastructure. A business idea needs a visual overview. This is where the business model canvas and the business model environment help us. The business model canvas by Alexander Osterwalder has 9 fields to describe the business idea compactly on a canvas. Post-its can be used to insert keywords into the fields and also to quickly remove them again if you realize within the team discussion that the term does not fit or does not fit at this point. Before you start filling this canvas with terms, please ask yourself the following questions as a team. How do you acquire customers? After you have acquired a new customer, how do you plan to identify with this customer and manage the relationship, if at all? How do you charge your customer? What is your revenue model? How much do you charge your customer? Can you calculate your revenue for the next month, quarter, and year? What assets are available to you or under your control? Who are your key partners? What key activities do you need to carry out to fulfill your value proposition? What are your fixed costs? What are your variable costs? Can you calculate your total cost for the next month, quarter, and year? Does your sales forecast show increased profitability towards the end of the forecast period? You read the map of the model from right to left. So the first field to look at is the customer segments field. Here you're asked to ask which customers do you serve in your business. Several customers can be listed here. These must then also be considered when filling the next boxes. After you've found out who your customers are and what you want to offer to them, you need to think about how you reach your customers or how your customers want to be reached via which channel. Through which channel do my customers want to communicate with me as a company or organization? Through which channel do they want to receive their goods? Is this a real or digital channel? Are we talking about shops in the sense of stationary sales units, or are we talking about direct or indirect sales channel? So please ask yourself how the customer segments you have identified want to be reached. The next field deals with the customer relationship that is to be built. Perhaps your business model relies heavily on personal relationships. This would then have wider implications for the other areas in the model. If you build a very personal business model, the preference is for this personal level, but such an approach is not very scalable. You can also just use the customer relationship field to describe how you attract and retain customers. Customers need to be acquired first, but once you have acquired them, it is important to find out how you will keep them. The next important question is, what are people or companies really willing to pay for? How do you think your customer wants to pay for something they buy? Do they want to pay the subscription, or do they prefer to pay a license fee? What are the necessary pricing mechanisms? The right side of the model shows how and for whom we create value. And in addition, how you capture value for yourself as an organization. The left side of the model questions how value is created. There are questions about resources such as, do you need factories or perhaps a brand or a brand name? Does it need intellectual property or a server? What are the key things needed to create this value? What activities do you need to pay special attention to? Is it marketing and sales, research and development, or maybe managing servers? The driver behind these questions is to find out which activities are critical to our business model. And can activities be outsourced? You can enter into partnerships for this purpose. This raises the question, in addition to the offer from the right-hand side, of who are the most important partners that can use your business model. If you know all 3 elements on the left side of your canvas, you can very quickly find out what your costs are. Overall, you create an overview to create, deliver, and capture value in your business. And you can set out the logic of your business model. Test the model in the team and fill the fields according to your business idea. Then rethink your business model. Does it work? Do the revenues outweigh the costs? Try to estimate revenues and costs for the next month or for the first month of sales, if you are without revenue for the first time being. What are the risks of your business model? What parts of your business model are most important for your business to grow profitably? Are there things that need to be changed? It is then advisable to check each answer in the Canvas model against the following criteria in the table below. How do you know that your assumptions are correct or true? Have you made an assumption, or do you have solid evidence, for example, in the form of documented facts? In cases where you have facts, mark the answer fact and make a note of your evidence. In cases where you have made assumptions, mark the answer assumption. The more your knowledge is based on facts, the more certain your model assumptions become. Further questions develop the model further towards practicality. The business model canvas helps us to better understand our business model, but the business model is developed in a constantly changing environment. The canvas represents the factors that can be controlled. The forces in our environments are beyond our control. You also have to observe the business environment to be successful. Porter's Five Forces is an industry structure analysis model developed by Michael E. Porter. Porter's Five Forces model is a method for determining the attractiveness of a market environment for individual industries. The model assumes that 5 competitive forces are relevant for market attractiveness. The market forces defined as determinants in Porter's 5 forces model are bargaining power of suppliers, bargaining power of customers, threat of new competitors, threat of substitute products, competitive intensity in the industry. Bargaining power of suppliers means how much influence the suppliers have on the costs. This increases, for example, if there are hardly any or no substitute products for the supplier's products, or switching to another supplier causes high costs. On the other hand, this influence decreases if, for example, there are many suppliers in this industry and only a few individual companies are in demand, or the company is also able to produce the individual parts itself. Negotiating power of the customers examines how much influence customers have on the price. The influence increases, for example, if there are many suppliers for few customers, or if primarily standardized and non-differentiable products are produced in the industry, for example, gas and oil. Influence decreases, on the other hand, when it's difficult for customers to change the supplier or the customer's need is urgent. Threat of new competitors poses the question, is it likely that new competitors will emerge? Is there a risk of having to share the customer potential? This makes falling prices more likely and customers may become more willing to switch. According to Porter's Five Forces model, it is therefore necessary to examine how difficult or easy it is to enter the market. This can become more difficult if, for example, market access requires high investment. Or is it a network good and the previous supplier has already built up an established network? Threat of substitute products. Substitutes are products that satisfy the same or similar customer needs. The more substitutes there are, the more difficult it becomes for established suppliers. When looking for substitutes, one has to be creative. The research can yield results that are surprising at first glance. For example, smartphones can be competition to street maps. Customer loyalty also plays a major role here. Intensity of rivalry within the industry is about how the market participants in the sector under investigation deal with each other. Decisive for internal competitive behavior are influencing factors such as industry profitability, cost pressure, customer power, or market saturation, and market growth. Internal rivalry often leads to price or performance competition. The business model environment is an extension of the business model canvas in Porter's Five Forces. The 5 forces are summarized in the BME under industry forces. In addition, there are also extended approaches such as key trends that influence the business model, market trends, which intensively analyze the market and customer side and their influence on the business model, macroeconomic trends, which look at the influence of the macroeconomic situation on the company. The following steps are taken. First, market forces. Does the model match changing customer needs? Market segments. Identifies the key market segments, describe their attractiveness, and looks for new segments. Needs and requirements. Outlines market needs and analyzes how well they are being served. Market themes. Identifies themes that are driving and changing the market from a customer and supply perspective. Switching costs. Describes elements related to customer switching business to competitors. Revenue attractiveness. Identifies elements related to revenue attractiveness and pricing power. Second, industry forces. Is the business model consistent with evolving changes in the industry? Competitors. Identifies established competitors and their relative strengths. New entrants. Identifies new emerging players and decides whether they compete with a different business model to yours. Substitute product and services. Describes possible substitute for our own offerings, including from other markets and industry. Stakeholders. Indicates which actors can influence the company/business model. Suppliers or other value chain partners. Describes how much the business model depends on other actors in the value chain. Third, key trends. Is the business model prepared for new trends? Technology trends. Which trends could threaten the business model or help to improve it? Regulatory trends. Which laws, regulations, or regulatory trends influence the business model? Societal and cultural trends. Which societal trends have an impact on the business model? Socioeconomic trends. What socioeconomic trends impact the business model? Fourth, macroeconomic forces. How will the business model adapt to macroeconomic changes? Global market conditions. Looks at current overarching market conditions from a macroeconomic perspective. Capital markets. Includes current capital market conditions relevant to the capital needs at hand. Commodities and other resources. Focuses on both current prices and price trends for key components of the business model. Economic infrastructure. Describes the economic infrastructure of the market in which it operates. All the analysis methods shown in Lecture 4.2 and 4.3 now come together. Now it is time to define the framework for your blockchain model. The blockchain framework is intended to help transfer the results from previous analyses into the digital world and make them tangible for a blockchain application. The following questions need to be answered. Which processes can be derived from the use cases? Which stakeholders will play which role in terms of consensus? Can the value proposition be transformed into a construct that can be captured mathematically, resulting in digital data? Can contracts in the digital world be processed as transactions via the chosen blockchain? The blockchain map can then be filled with the results obtained. Under roles and incentives, you determine which participants have what level of access rights, and above all, how you motivate these participants in your network to make their contribution, even if it's only that they use the solution you have devised. For this, you can use the value proposition and value stream mapping as a guide. For example, you have the roles like user, which is simply someone who uses the network without being part of it. For example, you can transfer Bitcoin from your account to another one on the Bitcoin blockchain without being a miner yourself. Another role, depending on the type of blockchain, can be the miner. For example, what should a miner role be in the system? Only create blocks or also validate transactions? Validating the blocks could be another role. You can assign this role to participants in your network. What are the requirements for these validators? And you may also want to use a centrally subordinate administrator, which would then already take you away from the classic approach of a blockchain. But perhaps the main focus of your solution is traceability, and thus authentication to prevent fraud. Then this leads you into the approach of a private blockchain solution. Similarly worth discussing is the transfer of the value proposition into transactions. How can your value proposition be expressed digitally? Which algorithm is necessary to enable transactions based on which type of data? Is the transaction based on asymmetric encryption, or do file formats such as a PDF document need to be converted into hash value, etc.? Conclusion. The methods shown in lectures 4.2 and 4.3 can help to find out for which processes of a use case the blockchain technology is really useful. The blockchain decision model can also help in the selection of consensus mechanisms and the type of blockchain. The stakeholders identified during the stakeholder analysis can provide information about who validates which role and who has read permissions. The value proposition and business model canvas shows where certainty is expected and which values can be converted into transactions and coins. The business environment model, on the other hand, shows us how the market can develop and which innovations might be worth thinking about. In sum, it is always important to remember that you have to deal with a real problem first. Blockchain as a technology should never be seen as a set solution.